From the Smith Center in Chapel Hill, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. Joining me from across the court over there is our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, this is, I mean, you talk about a three-thing setting. This is about as good as it gets. We don't have anybody leaf blowing. We don't have anybody dribbling on the court. Knock on wood. We don't. Only a few cleaners up there.
This is compressed wood, I think. So
yeah,
it's
close enough. Wood? Yeah, it's close enough, I think. You can go knock on the court, I guess, if you really wanted to, but probably don't need to do all that. So, but we're here following Carolina's 79-70 win over NC State in the Smith Center. Let me run through some quick stats, and then we'll dive into the meat of this podcast. But Harrison Ingram leading the way for the Tar Heels today. Season high 22 points, 6 boards for him as well. Elliot Cadeau, big game from him, 15 points, 7 rebounds. RJ Davis, 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. And then Armando, 13 points in 7 boards. But AJ, we have to start in the second half. Wasn't a great first half for North Carolina. State made a kind of a big run. Carolina went in a scoring drought, and I just said kind of fell flat at the end of the first half, where Carolina ended up being behind at the break. But man, 26-6 run early in the second half. And I think the craziest part of this game for me was something State did, and it was that 10.5-minute scoring drought, 0 for 15, I believe, from the floor. Man, they just went ice cold offensively, and got to give some credit to North Carolina for that defensive pressure they put in the second half. I know some of the players talked about that, how that was kind of a point of emphasis after halftime. But again, if you go 10.5 minutes without making a basket, AJ, I mean, your defense can be great, but there's a little bit of, NC State just missing shots too. But for me, that was the big turning point in the game, and ultimately led to what was a relatively comfortable win for North Carolina in the long run.
It was. It probably should have been more so, because I'm going to harp again on how the Tar Heels are just not playing well late in games offensively. I think they pull back too much. Hubert did it again today, 8-27. They go up by 13. I know this is what we're talking about. There are a couple times during transition he's making them stop. He did this last year, and it's, his growth is, I'm not criticizing, it's just observations. His growth as a coach is an ongoing thing. And I think that at times that when you pull back the aggressiveness of this particular group, especially when the game was going that way, I think it opened the door for State to cut that thing to 5. And they did, but the Tar Heels did enough to get the win, and they did enough because they had that 26-6 run. State closed the half with a 14-1 run, and Carolina looked atrocious. And then State scored the first basket of the second half, so spanning the two halves, it's a 16-1 run in your own building.
Yeah.
And then the Tar Heels put the clamps on. They really did play well defensively. State missed shots that maybe State should have hit, but they were rush shots. I think they took the key was they took DJ Horn out of his comfort zone, and it affected Taylor as well. The two of them combined for 26 in the first half. I think they combined for 12 or 14 after the half, but they were 3 for 12 in the second half, and they had a lot of the misses during that stretch where State missed 15 straight shots. So, a week ago, Virginia missed 22 out of 23 in one stretch. State missed 15 in a row. So the Tar Heels deserve some credit. I know there are going to be people saying, well, gosh, these guys are just missing shots. And if you see UVA, what they're not doing in Cameron right now, I know a lot of that's UVA, but still, if teams are going through those stretches against you, your defense gets a lot of the credit. But I also credit the offense for spreading the wealth. Cormac's first made bucket, I think it may have been his first shot, was that 3 that got him going. RJ had some buckets in there. I honestly thought they maybe should have had more of a run, because they were struggling offensively, getting the kind of looks that they should have gotten during that stretch, and they missed them. Armando missed a dunk. I don't know if the dunk was in that run, but it may have been in that run. And some other stuff in the lane. But a 26-6 run at home or anywhere is going to lead you to a win in most games. You hold a team to 15 straight misses, it's going to lead you to win in most games. And I think one of the integral points of that 26-6 run was it was at 7-0 when the incident with Cadeau and I think Casey Morcell occurred. Harrison Ingram, who is never going to run away from something like that, jumps in there and starts barking. And there was some barking going on, and there was an elbow or a forearm or something like that. There was some stuff going on. The referees did a good job handling it, and they said, you know what? It's an emotional game. It's an emotional sequence. We give warnings, and that's it. So I thought that they handled it really, really well. But the Tar Heels, I was sitting next to Bryant Balcom on our staff, and you were sitting right behind us. I turned to Brian. I said, this can be good for Carolina, not so good for State. Because State, if you're an NC State fan, you're looking at it today and say, boy, have I seen this play before. Yeah. Because NC State is going to NC State in basketball. And we saw that today, and the Wolfpack did not handle coming out of that situation nearly as well as the Tar Heels did. I thought the Tar Heels had energy today, but that amped their energy up even more. They were better defensively after that. They scored enough to build a 13-point lead and got the win. But I like how they responded to it. I like that they don't run from stuff like that. This is a month that we're in now where you've got to handle those sequences well. Hubert has said in the past, we go looking for a fight. That's part of what fueled that run 2 years ago. That club went looking for a fight. They didn't back down. They were tough. They were tougher than they were in January, tougher than they were in February. Now, this club's been pretty tough, especially in January, but a lot of the things that marked their wins in January have been a little absent the last month. I thought some of that stuff came back today, and the 26-6 run and how they did it. They didn't do it just by being electrifying offensively and racing up and down the court in Dunk City and stuff like that. They did it by being physical. They did it by defending. They did it by getting some in transition, but not a lot. They did it by setting good screens and coming off of screens. They did it by running some good actions. Even their sets were working there for a while. And they did it by just out-gritting, out-dueling, whatever adjective you want to use to describe it. They did it by out-winning NC State during that stretch. So that's the sequence that gave them the win. And that's the sequence that North Carolina needs to package up and just throw over the shoulder like Tom Sawyer and put it on that stick, throw it over the shoulder, and take it everywhere you go. Because even with Notre Dame coming in Tuesday, the rest of their games, they're going to be required to have that as a major part of what they do. It's here, man. It's March, 2nd? It's here. This week they go to Duke, then it's the ACC tournament, then the NCAA tournament. If this club wants to, I guess the banners are all around up there. If they want to hang stuff, that 26-6 run, not so much getting 26-6 runs in every game they play, but all that was entailed in making that run happen must be a part of who they are moving forward. Absolutely.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah, it was kind of a tale of two halves in a lot of ways. I mean, we were talking at halftime. I think Cormac Ryan and RJ Davis had combined for 5 shots and 2 points. Is our photographer Kevin Roy. Shout out Kevin over there. Get him on
Kevin Roy. You're on the podcast. Airball.
But
he's doing this.
I'm about to say, I'd love to. If somebody found a basketball, I'll put a shot up after this. I'd love to. But
shoulder, man. 10 years ago, I'd be all over it.
Can't post up like it used to.
But you know what? It's easier for me to do it now that I use the Rogue Shop cream, as opposed to a couple years ago when I didn't have the Rogue Shop cream. There you go. There's a freebie for my boys over at Rogue Shop.
Tar Heels 10.
RogueShop.com. Tar Heels 10. Save money.
Use that promo code.
Check them out. That was smooth.
That was nice. That was one of probably our best ad read of the year.
By the way, we do have an exciting new sponsor coming up this month, and there's going to be opportunities to get free tickets to the Carolina Duke game this week too. Come to our site, TarHeelIllustrated.com. You'll see that stuff. It's not out there yet. We're going to get it out in the next 24 hours, but it's a new sponsor for the month of March. You're going to love what these people are doing, and free tickets to the Duke Carolina game. So we just morphed into sponsorship stuff.
It's a tasty little teaser right there, AJ. I'm gonna stay in tune.
I'll tweet some stuff. We'll put it on we'll put it on Facebook, but you have to go through our site in order to get it. So
absolutely, come on over to our links in the description below. We like to make it easy for you. But just real quickly to stay on that first half, we were talking at halftime. Cormac Ryan, just 1 shot in the first half, 0 for 1, didn't really play a lot, need better production from him. And then RJ Davis was quiet. I think he had just 2 points in the half. So they combined for, I believe, 5 shots and 2 points. And that, one of the reasons Carolina really struggled, particularly towards the end of the first half. That's not a recipe for success for this team, man. It's not. And again, tale of two halves. We saw a completely different performance in a lot of ways in the second half, and I think it obviously culminated in that 26-6 run. But just an interesting game in that respect, because things just changed in the second half, and got to give credit to Carolina for that. But it was bad at times in the first half. Make no mistakes about it.
Yeah, offensively, they were pretty good for a while. They just were.
Yeah, they just kind of fell flat towards the end. They just fell flat in the first half.
I agree. There are times where they just look tired.
Yeah, no, you were
times where
saying
they
that.
look like
Yeah.
there are times where they look like they're playing with ankle weights on or heavy shoes, and they go through stretches like that. They didn't look like that in January. I mean, I think they're a tired team. I mean, their bench played 33 minutes tonight. Hubert just ain't going to do it. You know, I defended him last year because the bench wasn't that great. He has the bench now, which not only, and this isn't a bench segment, but I'll go on with this. The bench, it doesn't just give the starters rest, but each guy on the bench is uniquely different from the 5 starters, so it changes the way Carolina looks. So teams have to constantly adjust when you bring somebody in. Maybe that's, I don't know. I just think the bench should play more. There are a few things I think still need to be cleaned up, and Hubert is still learning as a coach, but I think sometimes coaches get a little tight. I wouldn't say they panic, but they get a little tight. They got to win the moment. And sometimes when they do that, they don't play the bench as much. And sometimes when they do that, they pull the plug a little early in the second half because they don't want to give a game away. They just want to milk clock and get to the finish line. And I think those two things are happening right now. Now, as far as the point that you made, which is our second point here in the 3 things, I think it's actually a great sign that this team wins a game when that happens in the first half. A week ago, RJ didn't score in the first half, and they won at UVA because Cormac went off. Today, Harrison was going off. And I think this is a very quiet 4-game win streak because there are a lot of things to pick at. And look, we've done a lot of picking. There's no doubt about it because it's March now. And it's time to pick. And it's time to identify things that must kind of move forward a little bit. There are a lot of wonderful things about this team. There are a lot of reasons why this team can make it to Phoenix. But if you're a legitimate national championship contender, right now the mirror has to reflect the things that must get better. But very quiet in this quiet 4-game win streak is the fact that 4 different players have led them in scoring in these last 4 games. 4 different guys. You had Armando, you had Cormac, you had RJ with the explosion the other night, and tonight you had Harrison. And then you go back, then they had the loss at Syracuse, and then before that, their 5th win, the last 5 wins, RJ had 25, but Elliott had 19. So Elliott had 19 at Miami in that win, and Elliott had 15 today. So one of the things I said that is really important, harped on it a lot after the other night when RJ went for 42, at times guys were just taking photos of him on offense, is that they need to have flare-ups from other guys to win games in advance. Armando is going to do whatever Armando is going to do. RJ is usually going to get his or come close to it. But you got to have flare-ups. Tonight they had 2 flare-ups. Cormac wasn't on. RJ wasn't getting a ton of looks, but Harrison goes for 22. Elliott goes for 15. If Harrison and Elliott give them 37 every game the rest of the way, this team's cutting down the nets in Phoenix. Period. But they're not going to get that. It's not fair to expect that. But it could be Cormac. It could be Armando in a very advantageous situation where he goes for 23 points, 24 points, gets to the line and got a lot. He got Burns. Well, Burns actually committed fouls going off of his man in rotation, which was puzzling, some of the fouls he committed today. But if Armando can draw fouls, get guys in foul trouble like he did with Middlebrooks, he drew some fouls on him, and get to the line and hit free throws, there are ways for this team to have the other contributors that flare up and kind of join RJ. So it's a good sign. And I asked RJ if it's a really good sign. I said, you don't have to do it. And some of these teams have really sold out on defending RJ. Duke did it. Duke had Proctor in his face 25 feet from the basket. Carolina still scores 93. They still scored 93 points. So I think it's a really, really good sign that they've had someone flare up when RJ isn't doing much, and maybe even Armando. I thought Armando was pretty good offensively in the first half. Should have gotten more looks. I think that's one issue that is another issue this team needs to fix. He needs to get more looks, and he needs to get more looks lower on the block. Some of his first touches today were a little far out from the block. Maybe that was Burns pushing him out. I don't know. But it happened with Middlebrooks too. And Armando's got to be as strong or stronger than Middlebrooks. But this is a good sign. Go back to the title run 2 years ago, the national title game run 2 years ago. But what did Caleb had like 26 or something like that in the first game? Caleb had 28 or 30 against UCLA. RJ had 30 in the second game against Baylor, lifted him. Armando had that, 20 and 22 or whatever it was against St. Peter's. And, of course, Caleb with the shot in the second half against Duke. And then they didn't have it in the second half against Kansas, and they lost the national championship. But the point is, Brady was big, obviously. They had different guys that could flare up, and that makes it really difficult for other teams defensively. So we're seeing that. So as we look at the parts that are coming together on this track toward the ACC and more importantly the NCAA tournament, the chippiness and responding to it and actually getting better because of it, that's a great box to check right there. 4 different guys leading them in scoring the last 4 games. And the flare-ups I noted about Elliott here. And let's go back to the Duke game. Harrison was in the 20s for that game as well. Yeah. Armando went 25. So their last 6 wins, they've spread the wealth a lot. That's a winning recipe for this team. They didn't spread it much Monday night, but that's a one-off. Hopefully for them, that's a one-off. And I think winning a game when RJ doesn't go for 25 or more or 22 or more is absolutely a great thing for this basketball team because he's not going to do that every game moving forward. Someone's going to lock him down, and they're showing that the points can come from other places.
Yeah, and it's great that you have a guy like RJ who can do that. And we've talked about that before. I think we might have talked about it on the basketball show this week of like, it's not a recipe for success for this team for him to just, them kind of to be like, all right, RJ, we kind of need you to take over and win this game. But they have that option. He's proven that he can do that multiple times this year. So again, I do agree there's more of a balanced approach, but it's great to have that kind of, I'm not going to say safety valve back there, but a guy that can do that, ACC Player of the Year on your roster. So.
And an important other note to that, when RJ isn't scoring going through the stretches, it's not like it's 4 on 5. He had 3 assists today before he scored. Last week at Virginia, he had a few assists before he scored. So he's fully engaged. And I asked him about when teams sell out, it makes it really more difficult for them because RJ's still going to positively affect the game on offense, even if he's not scoring, because of the sellout, because it puts more premium on the other guys having to guard one-on-one in a sense. You're not going to switch as much because who's going to leave RJ? If you're selling out on him, you're not going to leave him. So you have to change how you defend. And when teams are forced to play a little bit out of character and then it starts not working, then Carolina's got the big-time upper hand. It's sort of like teams that press, not many teams press full court anymore, but that was a thing in the 90s. And if you were a full court pressing team all the time, once a team got a beat on beating it and beating the break and getting down the court and getting good looks, you had nothing to fall back on. Yeah. So when you sell out like that, what are you going to, your only hope is that they miss shots. And other than that one stretch to close the first half, Tar Heels didn't miss that many shots.
Yeah, no doubt at all. Last thing, what this means, we kind of used the term, and I think Carolina embraced chippiness today. I think that's a good way to put it. They weren't scared of the fight, and they stepped up to it. And like you said, I think when it did get a little chippy, I think that ultimately kind of backfired in NC State's face and kind of got Carolina going a little bit. But let's talk about what this means. Carolina's now won 5 of the last 6, AJ. Just kind of sneakily. I know we've had some I know we've had some 3 things recently where it hasn't all been sunshine and rainbows at times, but again, 5 out of the last 6. That's a real positive for this North Carolina team. Notre Dame coming up on Tuesday night. You'd expect Carolina to win that game pretty handily. We'll see what happens. And then Duke coming up on the weekend. So not many games left in the regular season, obviously. It is officially March now. We've talked about it a lot here, but what do you take away from this game? Because for me, I think we've hit on a lot of it already, but I think it was the fact that Carolina, the biggest positive I took away today was the fact that Carolina could have such I thought they were poor in the first half, particularly in the way they ended it. And I think there was a little bit of worry in this building of like, oh, this isn't great. What's going to happen in the second half? But Carolina responded. And like we've been talking about in this, we ended up seeing a more balanced approach offensively from Carolina, with Cadeau pitching in and obviously Ingram having a big game, Armando having a solid game, and then RJ finishing with 14. It ultimately turned into that game when it was kind of Harrison, the guy, kind of carrying him a little bit in the first half because he obviously had a big first half. So that's the biggest positive for me. But when you look at this game, what do you take away from it not only from today, but with what's coming up this week as well?
5 out of 6. The loss in there, the other team had its best shooting game in like 50 years. And it was a close game.
Man. It happens.
Carolina had the ball down 4 at Syracuse with a little over 2 minutes left, and then they turned it over 4 times. So they're not too far, really. A fairly normal Syracuse shooting game from having won 6 in a row. And doing it while not being great. And there's something to say for that, because the NCAA tournament isn't about always being great. It's about finding ways to win. And that's what I do like about this team. And it's funny because at halftime today, I always go back down to the press room, and I get something to drink, and I go talk to Kevin, our photographer. Even if on the road, I do it when we don't have a photographer there. It's just kind of my way of getting up and getting the blood going. And one of the conversation was, this club's going out in the second round, because we do tend to put a referendum on what we just saw. And I was kind of thinking, man, this is not a good look. This is not a good look for a team that I wrote a piece the other day, said they've got to find their March mode. But, they do have some March mode. March mode isn't like when Carolina beat Rhode Island in 1993 in the second round to beat them by like 50 points. That's not March mode. Mm-hmm. That stuff doesn't happen much at all. March mode is responding to situations and actually flipping it. They flipped a 16-1 run into a 26-6 run. I wouldn't say it was a decisive run, but it gave them enough to get to the finish line. I still think this team needs to be better late game, like they were in January. They have not been great. They scored 10 points in the last 8 points in the last 8 minutes of the game today. They pulled the foot off the pedal some. They've got to stop that. That's a directive that comes from the top. Got to be better there. Got to be more aggressive. Put a team away. That'll be maybe a podcast, a daily drop this week.
I like that.
But the different guys scoring, you've got an unreal dude who gets 8 to 10 eyeballs on offense from their team and RJ. That in and of itself makes other guys better and opens up the opportunity for those flare-ups I was talking about. And these guys know each other well. I mean, they had a few things they left out there today offensively, and this thing could have been 15 points. They outscored NC State by 17 in the second half. They were down 8 at the half, and they responded. And they responded with a muscle flexor. Mm-hmm. And that's good, because you got to have muscle flexing sequences, quite a few of them, in order to advance once you get out of the first round. Sometimes you need it in the first round. Ask Purdue. Ask UVA in 2018 if they wish they had a little bit more muscle flexing going on for a 4, 5, 6 minute stretch in those games, and they wouldn't ever have suffered the indignity of losing the 16 seeds. So you've got to have it. So I think this team has shown that they have a lot of these attributes. Now, putting themselves in position to have to really rely heavily on that stuff, that happens in the tournament, but it's more dangerous in the tournament. The kind of close to the first half today. You do that in the NCAA tournament, especially when you get to the Sweet 16 and on, and that's the death knell.
Yeah, of course.
They've got to avoid that, and I think part of avoiding it is playing the bench more.
Agreed.
Just keep guys fresh, throw different looks in there, keep other teams on their back in the day, way back in the Peach Basket era when I played basketball, like in high school and stuff, the last thing you want to do is every few possessions have to figure out, who am I guarding now? Because teams are subbing a lot. And yes, you can infuse a little chaos into the game by constantly using your bench and rotating guys and resting guys and throwing different looks and getting a feel for what works best. And I would like to see Hubert do that work. I think it would make this a better team. And I would like to see how the team responds to it journalistically. So those are some things still, obviously, that people I know we're going to harp on. But, man, they got some metal. Mm-hmm. Jake, they got metal in that bag. They've got some stuff that you need that 17 had. 19 had it but didn't have to display it to get through stuff like 17 did. But 5 had it. 93 had it. That's what you need. UConn last year had it. Baylor 2 years ago or 3 years ago had it, actually. Kansas had it 2 years ago. They've got those elements. And the flare-up stuff about the scoring, it's important, needs to continue. So they got a lot of elements. And today showed that they have a lot of elements. I'm not saying this club's getting to Phoenix.
No.
I'm not saying that at all, because there are a lot of things today that will keep them from getting to Phoenix. But they know how to react to situations and get by it. That's 5 out of 6, like you said. And if not for an out-of-body experience by Syracuse, it's 6 out of 6.
Yeah.
Since the Clemson game. So,
yeah, it's a good point. 6 straight wins over NC State in the Smith Center as well.
Yeah,
so a lot of Carolina fans like too.
So this was the 9th game since the losing streak, going back to the Georgia Tech game, right? So they won 10 in a row. They won 10 in a row, and it's 6-3 since then. So they're 16-3 going back to the Oklahoma game, and all of that is power conference opponents except Charleston Southern. So in their last 18 games against power conference teams are 15-3. And by the way, they're 15-3 in the ACC. So they're good.
Not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not.
They're good
it's
with
not bad at all.
room still to grow. So
Yeah, I think that's the positive. Like you said, the ingredients are on the table. They've got them. It's just, when it comes to making a run in March, it's not about just having the ingredients. A lot of teams have it, or a few teams have the ingredients. Can you put them all together? There's other things too, man. You need a lot of luck to win a national championship too. I mean, there's a lot of different factors that go along with it. But again, to end this thing on a really positive note, like you said, the ingredients are on the table. Can they put them all together and make a run in March? I don't think it's outside of the realms of possibility by any means at all. So we will see what happens. Make sure y'all keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com. We're going to do a quick drop after this, so stay tuned for that. That'll come out on Monday morning. Looking forward to talking a little bit. I'm not going to tease it yet. We'll wait. We'll let the people kind of figure out what comes out on Monday, but looking forward to chatting with you about that one as well. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another edition of our Three Things Post-Game podcast. Make sure you like the video. Come on, guys. Carolina just beat NC State. Like I said, 6th straight win over NC State in this building. I believe it's 11 out of the last 13 over NC State. In both Raleigh and Chapel Hill. So again, like the video below. I want at least 250 on this one. I don't think we're asking for too much on that. Links in the description below. Head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Like AJ said, big thank you to Rogue Shop, Tar Heels 10. We'll give it a little quick shout out in this one. Make sure you use that promo code, and we'll see you all next time.
And then hold on, the new spots are coming.
Yeah, new sponsor coming too. Stay tuned.
They are giving away Duke Carolina tickets for next Saturday. And
I mean, it didn't get much better than that.
They're going to work through us to do it. So, and I'm very excited. I'm not going to say much more. I can't just yet, but I am looking forward to launching that because, man, it's such a great experience. And there's some people out there that it's a bucket list thing, and you may get a chance to win some for free. So we got to come back. Come to the site. We'll launch it either tomorrow or Monday, I guess.
Keep it locked, guys. TarHeelIllustrated.com. Like I said, links in the description below. We like to make it easy for you guys.
I'm actually reading my emails on my phone right now, and I'm actually reading up on the latest email they sent me. So we're coordinating.
Oh, I love it.
So I'm doing business and doing journalism at the same time. How about that?
Multitasking, man. I absolutely love it. We'll head on out of here. We got more stuff to do, but appreciate you guys watching as always, and see y'all next time. Thanks.
Thanks.